Welcome back to another episode of Pushing Back Chaos with me, Melon. We've got Mike and Raf here, and we are kicking off with visual for the first time. Those of us who are listening on podcast players all over the net, it's all the same as normal, but we're branching out into a brave new world. How you going there, Raf?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, brother. How you doing, man? Dude, it's actually kind of wild if you think about it. It's the first time we're doing video. People actually get to see our ugly ass mugs while they're
These
listening to
poor
us.
people.
Yeah,
There's going to be a lot of feedback about how we got good heads for radio, and
yeah, man.
you'll see there's an icon rather than a head for the serving member. How you going, Mike?
Good. I'm just doing everybody a favor, pretty much. I mean, our ratings are already going to go down. Everybody's going to see it, what we really look like now, at least you two mugs. And they're going to be like, wow, not what I expected. And so I'm trying to cut our losses, basically what I'm trying to do.
No, you got to do it. You got to do it. And welcome back. It's a new year, 2023. You know, to all the listeners out there, may it be a year of fulfillment and meaning, and may you bring prosperity into your life and that of your family. And we really wish you guys all the best for the year, health and happiness. You know, it's a year to get after it. It's a year to create something new. It's a year to push chaos back in your life and find an area where you can't 10x something. You know, find an area in your life where you can smash it and put it out of the park. I hope you guys will have a fantastic 2023. How was your Christmas and New Year's and everything, Raf?
Oh man, it was it's it wasn't chaotic, but we're very fortunate that I guess we got accustomed in the military that like a holiday isn't a specific set of dates. It's that moment. And so of course, since December, rather since Thanksgiving, because of my work schedule, my wife's work schedule, her family's schedules, we ended up shifting everything around. I think we celebrated Thanksgiving like mid-December or something crazy. And then, Christmas was like literally the day before Christmas Eve because I had to work, Christmas holiday. That's where, peak travel. So lots of flying. And then same thing with New Year's, I was on the road. So we just kind of celebrated in between the actual days. But I mean, like I said, it's military life, man. So it's not, you don't get all wrapped around the actual. It's the moment, right? It's not the dates. Who gives a shit about the dates?
100%. It's the moment. It's the people.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? How's your Christmas? How's your New Year's Eve and how have things been since we last spoke?
Everything's been really good. And I think we already covered this, dummies, because we did an episode of January 1st and talk about New Year's. So we're literally recapping. It's the Friday the 13th, which is bad luck, which is obviously why I'm here with these two. So I don't know what to say. I can't go back that far. It's almost 2 weeks ago, I think was the last time. We all been pretty busy, but it was good. Just been focusing on a lot of work, and we started training the next 3 months. I set up 3 months of training for my guys, and we hit the ground running. All prior to break was prep and planning and making sure, our T's were crossed and the I's were dotted. And it was very clear, hey, when we get back off a break, we're hitting the ground running and we're going to hit it hard for the next 3 months. So we just finished up our first 2 weeks of that, and guys are enjoying it, having fun, learning a lot. I'm excited. It gets me out of the office and I'm back out, running around and kit and rifle and, doing that thing. So I'm pretty happy with that. And
Are you still Brokeback Mike, or is that getting better?
I was doing pretty good. We had a 5-mile run that we did, and I actually did really well at it. And then yesterday for workout, we actually played speedball, and our triad came out, our top three, and we played against each other. And I'm actually pretty sore, like my lower back today. So I'm still doing a couple things. I have to get assessment, still doing physical therapy. But you know what? Like, I'll figure it out, man. I always do. And yeah, I mean, it's on my mind, but it's also just something I have to accept. Like, I've taken a beating the last 16 years, and I got to give myself a little bit of grace there. Like, I could be a lot worse. There are guys that are a lot worse. So it's just maintaining perspective, I guess, and what I'm doing. And yeah, man, okay, I know that could happen. So how do I get past it? You know?
We got back from Australia, where we were blessed and had a wonderful time with the family. I mean, it wasn't without its challenges. We had Annie caught COVID on the trip over, and we had to isolate her for periods. And Michael had like his boys' own adventure. It was really nice. He went sailing with his cousin, Sea Scout stuff that I did with my brothers when I was a boy. And he can sail a small boat on his own now, which he couldn't do before, which is awesome. And time down at the coast outside Melbourne, just replicating all this stuff that I did as a kid. And we got back. Just, it's a long way. There's no two ways to say to do that trip. There's no good way to travel that far across the Earth's globe, as Raf knows well. But yeah, we got back, and everyone's sort of been a bit fluey since we got back. It was like straight back to work, just like you guys, and getting after it. And just been thinking a lot about the year and what's coming up, and trying to set stuff in place, trying to sort out some financial goals for the year is a big one for me that I'm really focusing on this year. And I've been back in the gym a bit, hit a big session with my younger brother when we were in Oz. And it's always competitive when we hit the gym together. We've been training together for like more than 30 years, I remember training with my brother when I was about 13. So good times. And it's just, let's get on with it. It's a different challenge as you go through the different stages in your life, right, Mike, with your back, with whatever it is. With me, it's my knee at the moment, and it's just, there's a limit there that I've not had before with difficulty running, and I'm just like, alternate means we're going to get there, maybe a different way, but it's the journey. It's definitely not a destination.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to just call Melon out on a really good story he shared over break that it kind of stuck with me the last couple days and thinking a lead up to this episode. But Melon was on a flight to Australia heading home, and he got diverted, and there was a mother with her baby on the plane. You want to tell us about that story? Because I thought it was extremely powerful. Just talking about trust in society and kind of like, there are good people out there. And I just thought it was really good on you, man. So I'm going to call you out to tell that story real quick. And because it stuck with me. So I think it's good to share.
Well, thanks, man. We had like a long journey, we had to go out via Jeddah, and there was thunderstorms, and we got diverted and landed in a different place called Taif while there were thunderstorms in Jeddah, and had to wait for them to clear. And then we got in there and we missed our connecting flight. It was a long way through Malaysia, and we got the next one. And anyways, it was a lot of chaos, and we got to Malaysia, no bags. And Cheza rolled in and sorted that out and was filling in paperwork for somehow these bags with Saudi tags have got to get transferred to a Malaysian Airways flight without us. And I'm like, we're never seeing these bags again. But luckily my brother's the same size as me. His wife's the same size as Cherry and Annie, and there's a cousin Angus who's the same size as Michael. So crack on. We're going back to family times. We don't need things. So there we are in Malaysia waiting for the last flight, and we've gone through the check-in and we're in the boarding area, and we've gone forward to the the disabled seats where we normally sit with Annie, and there's a young mother there with a baby. And, she's there in the baby seats. And so we started talking, and she was a young Australian mum who lives in the UK, and she was going home for Christmas on her own. And she'd been going from London on her own already. And she'd had pretty much zero sleep with a 4-month-old daughter. And we just got to talking. And when it was time to check in, it was like, Michael just grabbed one of her bags and I grabbed the other one, and she sort of was a bit taken aback, and we're like, oh, like, where are you sitting? Turns out she was sitting next to us on the flight anyway. So long story short, next thing, Cherry and I have got the baby, and she's having her first sleep for sort of 24 hours. And it was really nice. It was no joke, pretty amazing we just got in one of those great conversations you can have in those moments of trial where you're all sort of sharing something. the all the staff on the aircraft figured it out pretty much that, I've got this baby, it's not mine. There's the mum next to me sleeping, and they were just so, everyone was amazing. I had like elderly Indian men with the turban and the red dot who spoke no English coming past and giving me a fist bump and smiles. And later his wife, an old Indian grandmother, came past and she took the baby for a while. And it was like there really are good people, as you just said, Mike, and it doesn't have to be monetary things or doesn't have to be big things either. But, it was a really nice thing to see this poor mother shut her eyes, with a baby. We could give her a bottle and let the mum have a sleep. And we were happy because we got to hold a baby for a while, which is always a good thing. Yeah. I mean, that was a nice little way, a bit of Christmas spirit.
Did you guys land with baby fever? Did you guys just knock the boots as soon as you landed? Dude, that's a real thing. You laugh. That's a real thing.
I was like, I told the mum, I'm like, you're going to have to pat my wife down and check her handbag for your baby. I mean, 4 months old, right? Like just peak cuteness and the baby smell, and it was lovely. It was lovely. It felt like Christmas. It felt, I was happy and I felt like I was helping someone else out. A little bit of humanity.
For once, man. It's always about Melon, you son of a bitch. It's funny. So whenever I'm working or whatever, like I'll see a cute little baby, like chunky little thing. And I'm like, and I'll write to Obs and I'll be like, hey, I don't have baby fever, but I think I want a baby. She's like, that is baby fever, you idiot. And I was like, they're just so like, you just want to squeeze them,
Yeah. My brother, Hugh and his wife, they always had this thing for years and years. They'd say the word snatch, and it meant that they'd seen a beautiful little baby, and they both were like, "Oh, that's one we could snatch." Take it. I mean, it sounds weird, but it's just a sweet thing, I mean, who doesn't love a baby? There's something wrong with you if you're not like in a happy place when you're holding a little one. Yeah. I mean, that was a nice way to start the Christmas. I must say, Mike. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. Well. How great of a story is that? That kind of lifted me up, just like knowing that there's people out there willing to help strangers and random people. And like, I'm very honored and happy, like not selling that short at all. Like I'm looking at him right now on the screen and knowing that's who he is. He's not this 6'4" or whatever that is in meters, Melon, like, big, good looking, see you next Tuesday, as everybody can see now. But I just thought it was like, wow, man, the amount of trust that mother must have had to hand off her 4-year-old baby to strangers she just met at the airport and be like, yeah, I'm going to close my eyes and go to sleep, and you're just going to hold my baby and feed it. I don't know what that feels like, but I can't even imagine just like, yeah, hey, I trust this person. And there must have been something that cued her in on like, I can trust these people. These are good people. It definitely wasn't your looks, but it was probably your smooth words or something like that, something that gave her comfort. And
no joke, it's got a lot to do with Annie and Michael. Like it's a different world. When I walk around on my own, 6'2", 188 centimeters for the metrically minded people, and not the smallest guy. Walking around as a man in a crowd, you get used to the way people react to you. And when I'm walking around with my daughter, like she's got a cane and I'm holding hands with her, it is like a different world. People look at me and smile, and, people move out of the way and make space and stuff. Like that's the effect, a bit of a halo effect from being with Annie. And it was definitely that. Like this, we were talking for a number of hours before we saw how tired she was. And I was like, how long have you been awake for? Because, we're talking 4 months. The baby's on like a 2-hour sort of feed sleep routine at that stage. So what can you do? And so a couple of hours later, she was like, it's not like we can go anywhere.
Yeah.
We're all in the one tube flying through the sky like gods. Yeah.
Also, to be fair, Melon dresses like one of those guys from To Catch a Predator. He's always in a black wife beater and some dungarees, mustard stain. I mean, you kind of earn that, you kind of earn those weird looks. And so, of course, when sweet little Annie's next to you, it's, she kind of disarms everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all dressed up today.
Yeah, you are actually. That's Melon's version of a black tie.
It's true. It's true. So
Well,
it sounded to me, Mike, like you were doing a bit of a lead there, a segue into what we thought the topic would be today. So how about just sort of, you happy to just carry on there and let everyone know what you were thinking there?
no, it definitely was, and it's a great example of about what we're going to talk about today. And what we're talking about is kind of spiritual identity, all right, and how important that is. And when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about religious beliefs or a god or anything. No. We're not talking about that side of it. We're talking about who you really are, right? And what kind of propped this up in my mind the other day is at work we have our chaplain, and he came in, and before break I actually got to speak to him for about 30 minutes privately. He just was kind of moving through, and I introduced myself, and I heard who he was, and I just wanted to say hi to him and get to know him. And we had a great 30-minute conversation. I think about 3 minutes of it was talking about his religious duties, about services he's allowed to give and different things. And then the other 27 minutes was about life, his journey. He reads a book on leadership, one book a week. And he's like, I never want to be satisfied. I always want to be better husband. He has 2 or 3 kids. And he's like, I just want to figure out how I can go next level for my family. And then he's like, I was a pastor for 13 years, and then I joined the military. He commissioned as an officer. And he's like, I finished one deployment with the Marines, one deployment with you guys, and then he's going to do this next one as well. And he just said, I'm in such a blessed spot in my life that this is so wild and so bigger than me that I have the opportunity to come into this community and have some kind of positive impact on you guys in your life outside of just pulling triggers. He's like, it's one of the greatest honors that, for him, he's like, it's one of the greatest honors God has given me in my life to be able to be here and have this opportunity. And he's like, I'm here in every aspect to talk to you, to help or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to invite you in. You're going to come speak to all my guys. And so the other day he came in and he spoke for about an hour. And again, offered his services, but then it just snowballed into a really good conversation about who are you? He asked that question and he said, what are you guys fighting for? And on the outside, the initial answer is like, well, I fight for my brothers. I fight for my country. I fight for freedom, whatever. He's like, no. I really want you to dive in on that question. Who are you and what are you fighting for? And it was kind of quiet for like a minute, a solid minute, which seemed like an hour. Room full of alpha type guys, just looking around like, well, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to sound like a bitch, or whatever. Totally get it. And it kind of was a feeling that just came over me. And I was like, here's my shot. I'm going to speak up and I'm going to lead. Like, one, I'm a leader of the group, but also 2, I'm a leader. I feel like I'm a leader in spirit in my life, like where I'm at in my life. I should be a leader and I want to be that. So I kind of stood up and I was like, hey, here's my story. I'll share it with everybody. And Chaps just kind of like let me go. And I talked about my struggles, going back to Not Your Average Operator, episode 1, when I talked about a breakdown in 2017 and how I asked for help, how I was lost, how I didn't know what I was doing, who I was when I was outside. I was like, all I knew was military life, coming to work, be on time, work, and then go home to misery and not know who I was or what my whole life purpose was. Not just my job, but my life purpose. And I brought up Tender Warrior. I said some of my best friends, some of the best men I've ever met in my life who aren't in my community, they are just from every walks of life that are my best friends, more like brothers. These guys have shared knowledge and wisdom and literature, the things that are really bigger than anything. And that's just like your whole view on life and who you're supposed to be. And I was like, yeah, I fight for my country. I fight for my brothers, freedom, all that stuff. I got it. But I honestly took a second and I paused and I was like, you know what? I fight for me every single day, and not in a selfish way, but I'm trying to figure out when I wake up, how do I keep fighting to become what God intended me to be? Right. And it's not just It's not just the military. It's not just one thing. It's like I wake up today and he kept me around. I talked about sometimes to think about, oh man, why am I still alive? He kept me around for a reason, and it's to grow and get better within my circle of friends, my family, my work environment, literally every aspect of who I'm supposed to be in every single moment that's presented to me. That's a battle. That's fighting on a level that's not physical, man, but that's the one that can make or break you before it even kicks off. If your spiritual side, if your image of who you are deep down is dog shit, any challenge that comes, man, you're already failing, right?
Mm.
And it's so. I told Raph and Mellon before we even started recording about that. He asked, "Who are you really? Like, who are you and what are you doing this for?" That's a hard question, And people throw out the cliches of like, "Oh yeah, I'm fighting for my country. I'm fighting for my brothers. I'm fighting for this." All true. I'm not degrading those, but it was like, wow, man, you really just went on another level there. Like, who are you really? When you wake up and look in the mirror, what a piece of shit it looks like. And some days you wake up and you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's me. How am I going to fix this? How am I going to get out of this? How am I going to be better for the people that are depending on me to be who I should be in these moments, and good and bad moments? And I was just like, hey guys, I think I found the topic for this week because it hit pretty deep. And I think it's a great discussion.
For the non-military viewers and listeners in pretty much all of the Western militaries, there's a branch, as Mike has just mentioned here, of chaplains or padres, who are religious leaders, and they serve, and they're in uniform, and then they're commissioned officers. Each of the battalions and every unit I've ever been in has always had one, and you have access to them. They provide spiritual guidance, and they're also there as like a resource for command to assist with all sorts of stuff, marriage issues, relationship breakdowns, all the normal kind of things that are going to happen to when you get a large group of personnel together. And they also do battlefield services. There's always been that religious element for troops going into combat and people dying. They administer to the troops on the battlefield, and they're pretty special people. I mean, I've had some pretty amazing conversations with padres that I've been lucky enough to serve with over the years. And it's pretty amazing to think that these are the kinds of conversations that military people can have at work when you've got someone who's got that access and that vision and that background. And I mean, what a great thing to have that kind of personnel at work to bring these kinds of conversations. Because if you don't have clarity around this stuff, that's when you can have, military units can really go off the rails. When you don't have a clarity around mission and purpose and values and spiritual awareness and so on, and you're in the business of combat and there's death and all the challenges that can come with it, that's when things can really go sideways. So it's pretty interesting that the military invests in these things. And it's, they don't do anything lightly in the military. It's always based on, decades and centuries of experience and lessons learned. So how did you answer the question in the end, Mike? Or is it an open-ended conversation you guys are partway into about who you are and what your spiritual identity is?
I just talked about who, my battle every day was not against some foreign enemy, right? That's a set period in time where I'm on deployment and it's like, hey, now we're engaged in the enemy. But outside of deployment, like the daily battle is with yourself. And my answer to him, and I'm really comfortable now with answering this question, because if you would have asked me a couple of years ago, I probably would have struggled being like, who am I? It's like, well, I know who I am. And, I'm this in the military, or I'm this, or I'm a good guy, and it's just like some cheesy, cookie cutter answer, that sounds good. But I stopped and I was like, man, I know the answer to this. And it's me on a never ending journey to become who God intended me to be in every single aspect of my life. That's who I am. That's my role. I'm a servant. Like when I wake up, I am a servant to his vision and what he created me for. I don't even know what some of those are yet, but I'm open to them because I know it's just like, you know, we'll stick with the military thing. If you have a commander and you're a junior enlisted guy, you expect the commander to randomly come up to you and give you tasks, to challenge you, to say, hey, I need this, this, and this done. Go take care of it. Right. I kind of view it as like the same way now. My responsibilities. It's like, man, I don't know what challenges or taskings are going to be put in front of me in my future of my life. But, you know, whether I'm being a soldier, whether I'm being just a man, it's like, I want to be able to address those tasks. I want to be able to figure them out. I want to be able to accomplish the mission professionally or the mission of life. And it's like, hey, showing up on time, being there for the people that need you in the moments, being prepared for something, providing comfort for someone in their worst moment. And it's very clear now. And yeah, like I said, man, it's kind of cool that I can say that, because a couple of years ago, I don't think I could. I don't think I could get down to that deep level and have that outside 30,000 foot look on life that I do now. So.
Because it is interesting, right? Like a lot of people, I think if you were to stop someone and ask them, like, who are you and what's your identity? A lot of people would answer with roles that they have in life. Mm-hmm. Like they might talk about being a son or a daughter or a brother or sister or a husband and wife, or various work roles, being a parent, being a provider for the family, or a nurturer. There might be stuff that they talk about that occurs in their life as a role, not necessarily at the level of identity. It might be that those things are still, you know, the front of the shop, and it's not really like, who are you in the background while doing those things. And I think it'd be a lot easier to answer what do you do, as opposed to who are you? Like that is a question that it requires a bit more digging and thought.
How about you, Raph? How does that, if I was to ask you, you know, Raph, who are you? How would you take that? Like what initially hits, and then give it a pause, and then what comes through you?
That's a good question, man. And so when we were kind of talking about this, obviously kind of pondered, meditated on the whole thought of it. And I kind of ended up going back to my notes, you know, when I wake up every morning, and I do a little bit of spiritual meditation of my own, and kind of wake up for the day when a couple hours before my family wakes up. And I was just kind of scrubbing through my notes, and there was one that like kind of stuck out with me. And I was like, you know, as far as because originally we were talking about spiritual identity, like, you know, who are you? And obviously for me, it's been an evolution, right? Because throughout my life, and again, not to go back to the cookie cutter thing, but you were you're raised with these expectations, like you're an adolescent, you're a young adult, you're a whatever, and with those titles come kind of standard, I guess, I don't want to say practices, but you kind of fall into that role, right? Like you're a high school student, you're a college student, whatever. But right now at 45 years old, I feel like I think I've finally realized that life is like at the very core of it, right? At the most basic axiom. I think it's about veracity for me. Like it's all about seeking the truth. It's really about trying to find out what the truth is, because like, you know, the whole show is about pushing back against chaos, and we've talked about this openly before. There's a lot of bullshit out there that'll literally hook into you and make you believe that is something that you need to waste energy in. And so for me, in the last couple of years, it's been really important to kind of like cipher through all the bullshit and try to get to what the truth really is, you know, like what is important, what's going to bring me the most fulfillment and joy, not like instant gratification that usually leads to some sort of shame. So having like, this is kind of a long ways to say. So as I'm reading through my notes, there's one that I found, and I wrote this apparently the 10th of December of last year. And it's just a quote. I start off with if it's a quote from the Bible that really strikes me, then I usually just write it down. And I think that morning I was pondering about, you know, what is all this about? And it's James 4, verse 14. And it's, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. And then I wrote down my thoughts after I read that. And I basically like came to the realization that every second of every minute, you're basically, every one of us is racing to that expiration in this world as we know it, right? And I've talked about this openly before. Like, I think as humans, we don't think about that because that in itself is a very scary thought. But the other side of that is that, you know, that should make you realize that you need to stop wasting time, that you need to live, thrive, build something, you know, put the things that are important to you, the things that are true in front of you. And I at the end of that, I wrote, and I'm actually surprised that I like reading back. I'm like, oh, actually sounds halfway smart, but I wrote down, the Lord did this for a reason. It's to add texture and meaning to your life, right? Because nothing has value unless it can be taken away. And I remember thinking, like, this is something that every parent understands, because when your children are misbehaving, what do? You take away the thing that they covet, right? So life doesn't mean anything if you can't lose it. But if you think about it, like, we all have an expiration, and that should be enough to kind of like a cold shower. That should wake you up and be like, holy hell, I'm wasting time. So yeah, so all that to say, like, I think who I am is, I've become this person that, like, I'm really just trying to, like, literally just get down to the truths of the things that matter, my family, my friends, the things that I can influence, knowing that there's an expiration for me. And hopefully that's enough motivation for me. Look, do I still waste time? Do I still fucking spend hours on Instagram looking at asses and Pomeranians? Yeah, just like the next person, right? I'm just kidding, Aubrey. Like, it's but I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of frivolous crap that I do spend time in. And when I catch myself, I'm like, yeah, I don't have, I'm already behind the clock. Like, I don't have time for this nonsense. But more back to you, Mike, what you were talking about earlier, like, as soon as you were talking, it kind of reminded me to the series that we did, Not Your Average Operator, on Stu Webb's book, Tender Warrior. And the thing that still sticks with me from that book is the 4 pillars of a man's heart. And I would say a woman's heart too, right? But he specifically kind of focuses on manliness and manhood, or masculinity rather. And the 4 pillars were, if you guys remember, was every man is a king, every man is a lover, every man is a friend, and every man is a mentor. And I think that those, if you're listening to the show right now and you're like, I don't know who I am or what I am, I think that's if you're a man, even if you're a woman, I think that's a good place to kind of start. I think you have to realize that those are 4 very important roles that you're going to play in not just your life, but the lives that you impact. And I think that that's a good way to kind of find purpose, because when you were talking about all this, Mike, I immediately thought life is about purpose. Once you find your purpose, like, it's like, you're just going to vomit who you are, because it just hits you, right? Like, with 1,000% confidence, this is who I am. But if you do, like Mike, you just talked about it, when you were going through your year, 2 years of like just that period, like, you had a very hard time, very difficult time kind of putting your finger on who you were. And remember, like, you had me, you had Melon, you had other really close friends that were like this, not an echo chamber. We were like your sounding board. And I would tell you, like, Mike, this is who you are. But I could tell that you hadn't really acknowledged it yet, just from your answers and your questions. And I was like, yeah, I mean, and that's fine, right? We all will go through that. So anyways, that's my roundabout way of talking about who I think I am spiritually.
I think it's yeah, that's great, Raph. I mean, just listening to you and like waking up and, you started your day off with that type of assessment of yourself, and going back to Stu Weber's book, and it's so easy now when something happens, good or bad, I can literally stop, and I'm like a gorilla too, right? So I have 4 fingers, and there's those 4 pillars, and anything that happens, I can just take 5 seconds and literally go, okay, this happened. Who do I need to be right now? And I can look at those pillars. It's direction. It's like a playbook in a sense, right? It's like, man, when times are good and guys are just relaxing, I don't need to be the leader. I don't need to be the warrior. I don't really need to be a mentor. I can just sit here and be their friend. Right. And then that's how I literally pick up my fingers and I sit there and do that. And then other times, like when I go to work and it's like, hey, put your kid on, we're going out to kill bad guys. It's like, okay, more leader, more of the warrior, a little bit more mentor. I can't really be your friend right now. Like I have to make some tough decisions. And it's just like a filter, and I can look at and have something to reference. When I was growing up, and I want to ask everybody out there, but particularly guys, when my dad died at 18, he was like my mentor. We grow up and like your father is your father. And it's like, I'm going to go to him to ask him any type of guy questions. Right as I was becoming a young man, he was gone. And I didn't feel like I had anybody I could talk to for that direction. I didn't wake up and know who I was every day. I just knew I was supposed to do something. Like when I was going through selection, when I was in the military, when I was newly married, and it was just like, hey, I just got to wake up and I got to do things. Like I got to pay my bills. I got to go here. I got to go to work. I think I'm supposed to go do this. I think I should stop and get flowers because people said it's nice, just like random shit. But I never had direction on like, who the hell did I wake up as this morning? There was nothing. There was no, it's like a football team or a rugby team. It's like you have plays, you have like well thought out, hey, this is how it's going to flow and this is how we're going to attack it, right? And this is who you need to be on the team, whether you're the quarterback or the wing or whatever. It's like you have a role, and it's like this is your responsibilities and what you're supposed to be doing, what you're supposed to be focused on. I had none of that. And it really wasn't until the last couple of years talking with you guys and these discussions that we have, reading Tender Warrior and a couple other books, listening to Dr. Jordan Peterson and Simon Sinek and like all these great minds that are just really freaking diving in deep, that I can literally sit here now and go, yeah, whatever happens, man, I know who I'm supposed to be. And it's 1,000 pounds lighter. It's like this stress where everybody gets worked up. Like, what am I supposed to do right now? Who am I supposed to be? It's just like, dude, relax. It's all good. Like, I got you. Like, I know how to handle this. I know who to be. Just follow me. And until they pick that up too, and I feel that's what you guys did to me. You guys are 10 years older. You've been through a lot. Everything I tell you, you guys are kind of like, yeah. Rap always says, ask me how I know. And it's comfort to me because it's like, these guys are my leaders in a lot of ways. And I trust them. And because they've demonstrated, hey man, I know what you're supposed to do in this moment. It's okay. You're going to be fine. It's not as bad as you think, so go ahead, Melon.
I think, yeah. Thanks, Mike. That was, yeah. Thank you for the big kudos that you give to Raph and I. Sometimes I don't know that we necessarily earn it, but definitely, as Heath Bartlett always says, praise from the praiseworthy is high praise indeed. So thanks for that, man.
Shout out to Heath.
He's a old Aussie Hornet pilot for those who've joined us recently. For Raph, they're talking about having the identity and the values and the meaning and what you're up to in the world, always in the context of your mortality. I think that is an excellent and powerful and conscious and awake way to view the world. That yes, it's finite, and you can have these happy moments. And who doesn't love a Pomeranian? You know what I mean? When Raph talks about it, I always chuckle to myself. And you don't always have to be on. You know what I mean? There's time to take a knee and time to smell the roses and enjoy life as well. But the wasting of time, or the wasting of the blessing you've been given, that we've all been given to be here. So being able to hold, not all the time, but in key moments, just that mortality, that there's a finitude to us as well, that we can only do one thing at a time. You can't do all things. And that there's a sense, I think, in the modern era with digital and social media that, we're trying to multitask so that we can be with friends who aren't here, plus the people who are here, plus be at work, plus. And it's a facade. It's an illusion that you're chasing when you're doing that. And if you can have that clarity that what you have is time bound. You know, none of us are going to be here in 500 years. And what's important to you in the time you have? So Cherry and I know we've mentioned this previously. We did a course right back at the start of our marriage with a company called Landmark Education. It was like a personal development, and they go over a lot of this stuff. And it was really a hugely beneficial thing for Cherry and I to do right at the start of our marriage. And they were really big on getting clear on your identity as values that you are manifesting in the world. And the ones for me were compassion, brotherhood, and integrity. These three that I really thought about a lot, you know, for like an extended period, thinking about what is it that I'm really after in this world. And I don't think I've ever said those three to you guys, you know, but I like to think that you would hear them and be like, oh yeah, that is who Melon is, you know, having never heard them before, having heard me say them. And it's like you can cause these values to exist in the world, in the relationships you're with, wherever you are, and that whoever's with you gets an access to those. So that while I'm talking to Raf and Mike, you know, that value or that having brotherhood be present is true, and having integrity by, you know, people find it easier to be their word when you are your word, or where you bring up areas where you've fallen down yourself and you share them and you let them know that if that's going to happen again in the future, that you'll take responsibility for it. You cause that. There's an access for the people around you to also share these values. This is just a slightly different way of thinking about some of the stuff that Raf and Mike have been talking about, and getting clear on your highest values and what it is that you're up to in life, with that background thought of mortality and your limited amount of time. You can come up with these 3 or 4 values that you hold most dear. And, you know, like I don't think about these that often anymore, but it's been something we're talking more than 20 years ago, or actually 19 years ago that I did this course and came up with this as a list. And, you know, because what is it that you're really up for in the world? What is it that you feel like your purpose is here? And what is it that you are most committed to? And so for me, it was those 3. There's others. There's lots of other really great ones. People talking about self-expression, but people, when they're in the room, everyone else gets to really express themselves, and really the big things can be discussed when they're present. You know, it could be anything. And, you know, you got to live those values every day. Yeah. And as soon as you say, you know, that you're going to be these values, there's going to be everything else that will come up that's not that. And you're going to have to work your way through the mud, and, you know, you're going to have to clean your scorecard where you messed up and let people know. Raf, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is kind of a warning to all our military friends listening that it might still be kind of up and coming. And Mike, you're around that group more than we are. But it, you know, just while you're talking, Mel, and I'm just kind of thinking back about my time in the military. And, you know, it's interesting because in that time period, you know, when I did the 20 years, like, it was easy for me to identify as a Black Hawk pilot, right? As an Army warrant or whatever it was at the time. But I was like literally shitting away every other part of my life, right? Because that was the easy one to chase. It's like, that's who I am. And that's where I would put all my focus. And I'd put like 2% effort into like my marriage or my relationships or whatever. And so that's just my warning, is that sometimes, like I said, it's easy to fall into this cookie cutter kind of like default, like, oh, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do. You know, we go drink and go on benders and we deploy and we do this. And, but that's what I was going to get at. That's why it's kind of important to really have that sense of mortality and really know who you are, because life isn't one dimensional. I think, Mike, you talked about it, you know, about the 4 pillars of the heart, according to Stu Webb. And the strength, your real strength is in being able to balance and be able to know which hat you're going to wear when, and how much of it versus the others. I think that's where the strength really lies, right? Because you don't have any strength if you're a great, I don't know, like friend, but you're a shitty leader and a shitty lover and you know what I mean? Like the strength lies in like being good at all of them and knowing when to use them. But anyways, just that's my warning for anyone in any sort of career field where like you've worked your ass off to get there. And I understand the ego goes, this is who I am. I'm wearing the fucking long tab and the trident and the wings and the blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to introduce myself like this. Everybody knows what I got on my chest. Listen, the world does not give a shit. Like I would be the first one to tell you one of the funniest things, and I love this about my wife, but you know, our running joke for the longest time was like, you know, I'm a pilot. She's like, literally nobody cares. And that joke still resonates in my head. I'm like, yeah, no one cares. Like it's whatever. It's a profession I chose and I should be happy doing it. You know, you should never do something to get accolades or to get, you know, attaboys and that sort of shit.
Because that is 1,000% in for me in my military and my flying career. That is the one that is easy to say. This is my identity, and it's not your identity. It is a role you occupy. It is a position you hold. It is a task that you undertake. But then, you know, what are you going to do when that stops? And that can be really difficult for military people and people, first responders, people who have had a career that they've really believed in and pursued. It's like when you're in a transition time out of that, or when you're having the rest of your life occur, who are you in that part? Like you can't be a pilot with your wife. You know what I mean? Like it's a funny thing to say. And there's a lot of people who do try to do it. But that's you're highlighting exactly the crux of this point, Ralph. I think it's a valid thing to discuss. You know, you are not your role. And it's like, who are you behind that? Who are you when you're with your pilot mates? Who are you with when you're with your parents? Who are you when you're with your son or your daughter? Who are you when you're on your own? Who are you? You know, and for sure, there's an ego identity with something that you've pursued and it's very difficult to do. And good for you. You know, and we should take on difficult tasks and we should aim for the stars when we're in our career and in every other area. But then this is not who you are underneath. And the who you are underneath part can be very difficult to uncover.
When Mellon was talking about traits, it's kind of funny that he started bringing that stuff up. And I actually had my own list that I was writing down as I was listening to you guys at the beginning. And I wrote down a couple words that are like short-term versus long-term, that are wasted energy versus invested energy. And I'm going to kind of pair these up. But, you know, I talked about the 4 pillars. And then these situations also bring emotions or feelings, you know, like when something bad happens, you feel anger, or somebody hits you and you're like, well, I'm going to fucking hit you right back, right? Eye for an eye. And it's just like real quick that you want to snap to like some of these feelings or emotions or processes. And, you know, the first pair I have is toxicity versus comfortability, right? The short term is like, well, it pays off to be toxic and just like, you know, shred whatever comes at you and push it away, versus like, no, I'm comfortable with this. This happened. I get it. And I'm comfortable with anything that happens. Like, it's just the way of the world. And there's peace to that. That's long-term. The next one is spitefulness versus understanding, right? So if you want to be spiteful about somebody that's like just after you and they just want to like ruin your day, instead of just hitting them right back, like we're talking about, is just like, try to have some understanding. Maybe they're a good person 9 out of 10 days, but today they just woke up and got the worst news of their life. And that's why they're, you know, miserable or talking shit to people, and maybe just being like, hey, you need to talk or something. Like, are you having a bad day? Now, obviously it's very vague, situation dependent. You're not going to do that in every situation, but if it's like in your home or in your friend circle or anything, you really care for these people. It's like, why wouldn't you just stop and be like, why are they acting like that? You know, there's power to understanding. Next one is selfishness versus selflessness. It's very just to say like, I don't want to deal with that, and I'm just going to worry about myself, right? That's very short term. You're not invested. You're not getting, you know, energy, whatever. But when you help other people and you see problems or things going around, you were like, yeah, I think I can offer something that can make this better, make this person better, which in turn makes my environment better. That's all a plus. That's the selflessness part. Conceitedness versus empathy, right? So if you're a very conceited person, it's just like, man, you're just thinking about, again, more about you, more about yourself and what you want and your title and, you know, I'm this, I'm that. And you kind of lead like a dictator. just like, no, man, like have empathy for other people because everybody goes through something. Right. And when you see people practice empathy, it's like a blanket of comfort. And it's like, man, I want to be around this person. Like there's something to them where they understand, they get me, they get my story, they get my life. And that's how relationships build. And then the last part is non-authenticity versus genuine. It's just like Raph just said, nobody walks in a room and appreciates someone that walks around and flexes all their ribbons and devices on their chest or on their arm. It's like, okay, I see what you've accomplished, but who are you as a person? Oh, you're still an asshole. Yeah, I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, get out of the room. I don't care what you have or what rank you are. You're an asshole to me. You don't appreciate me. You don't treat me right. And you go down the list. Versus a genuine person like that, it's going to come in humble and be like, hey, yeah, I know what you guys view of me, but listen, that's not who I am. I'm here for you. This is my role now. This is what I believe in. I'm here to help get you to where I'm at so that one day you can do it for the people that follow you. It's a totally different environment. And just those words are things that I can break down when something happens, good or bad. It's like, man, I could go toxic real quick with this, real quick. Or I could be a spiteful son of a bitch and just take an eye for an eye just because. Is that going to benefit me in the long run? Is that going to redefine me of all the work I've put in? Yeah, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to practice the long-term stuff and have some control and discipline and go the better route. And that's what's going to separate me.
There's some really good stuff, I think, in there, Mike, where you talk about, like, if you're struggling and you're thinking about your own life, what Mike has just had there is put up a few things that you might want to highlight the thing that you do want to be. What is the value that you're aiming for by thinking about the opposite? So finding that spitefulness when you're thinking about understanding, like you might find the understanding, rather than when you're like, don't be spiteful or don't want to be toxic. What's the opposite of that? And that's the thing I want to manifest in the world. That's the value that I'm holding. And it can be a really good way to have that black and white comparison. You're going to jump in there, Raph?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just something to think about. And because when I was meditating about all this, it's like, who are you? And more importantly, how did I get to this point? And I think it's important to kind of give some anecdotal evidence or just kind of leave a roadmap so that others struggling to find their existence, their purpose, whatever, maybe this will be helpful. And I've realized that, have I arrived? Absolutely not. We've always said you don't really want to get to a place where you feel like you've arrived, right? Like you're always want to be working, but there are things in my life that I have turned around and I've turned the corner, and I'm very, very proud of, like just relationships and personal and professional sort of stuff. And I think there's 3 cornerstones that like really help you get to that. So whatever your goal is, whatever your purpose is that you're trying to build, just remember that it takes like 3 things. And I didn't come up with this. Like, this was listening to another podcast. It's called Bedros Keuilian, but the way he said it, I was like, fuck, he's right. Like those are the traits that got me to whatever I consider to be successful. And that's being focused. So very, very specifically, you focus on whatever it is that you're trying to, like, maybe you're a shitty husband and you're trying to be a better husband. Maybe you're a terrible pilot and you want to be a better pilot. Maybe you've flown with Mel and you're like, God, that son of a bitch is good. Why is he so soft on the controls, whatever it is, but be very specific, like in your brain, write it down if you have to, but be very like down to like the most smallest detail, and then start playing that backwards. Be consistent, like make a decision to be consistent with that thing that you're trying to make better, because without consistency, it's like working out. It's like anything in life. It's like dieting. It's, it's dating your wife, dating your significant other. If it's not consistent, it doesn't, like, you're not going to build that muscle memory. And then the last one is discipline. And that really just comes down to do it even when you don't want to do it. And there's so, like, trust me, man, there's 1,000 fucking excuses in this brain of mine. And they're ready to go. Every time I'm like going to jump into a cold shower or like an ice bath or even go work out. Yesterday is a perfect example. I did legs, And as most of the time I enjoy like working, squats and that, but I just was not feeling it, man. Like I sat in that parking lot for like fucking 30 minutes, Pomeranians and whatever else I was looking at. And I was just like, and I remember just at some point I was like, all right, enough's enough. And I just like, there was a switch, right? And I just got out of my car, didn't think about it, eased into it, and eventually had a phenomenal workout. But that's the point though, right? Like we're all going to hit those speed bumps, but discipline, even when you don't feel like it, that's especially when you need to tell yourself, fuck it, I'm doing it, and I think for me, at least, it helps to think of yourself as, the person that you're trying to be. Like you might not be that person already, like whatever level of savage you're thinking about, but that's who you're trying to become. So might as well just act like that person. And that person would just get up and fucking go do the thing. Right. And so that's something to think about. So those three things: focus, consistency, and discipline. And if you put those in any aspects of your life, whether it's starting your business or, fucking being a better friend, a better husband, dude, I will guarantee that you're going to go leaps and bounds and, orders of magnitude well above what you're shooting for. Because I mean, listen, this isn't something that I've invented. This is something, if you look around, if you look at the Warren Buffetts, if you look at the Simon Sinek's, like Mike says, if you look at the people that are uber successful in those aspects of life that you're trying to improve, that's what they've done. Whatever, I mean, like those are the three pillars of what they took to get to that role.
Yeah. And that's,
love it.
That's some gold coming from Raph too. I mean, I know he struggles getting up and like completing thoughts and staying on, because if he turns his head right now and takes his hat off, you'll see that he's missing a quarter of his brain because the back of his head goes straight down to his neck. So like, I mean, look at it right there. Look, it's straight down. So, I mean, just to hear him coming out, talking about his struggles with his mind and his process, man, it motivates me. I think I'm going to drop down and do like 10 push-ups, but it's nice to hear, Raph. I love you.
Just remember, one day when you're allowed to show your ugly mug, you heard it here first, folks. Bert and Ernie, literally cross pollination of Bert and Ernie. Just you heard it here first. I'm just gonna leave it there.
The head does look a bit like a toothbrush, doesn't it? Oh man. So, who are you? What's your spiritual identity? Is there any other thoughts that you were thinking you wanted to just drop now before we wind up here, Mike? The topic is a big one, and obviously we're just opening, hopefully, the conversation for people to apply this stuff in their own life. Like it's very easy to focus on the roles you have, the jobs you do. Who are you underneath? Were there any other extra stuff you wanted to leave the listeners with here, Mike?
No extra stuff. I think we hit a lot of aspects to start with, and I'm going to challenge everybody, not just men, but women as well. Write some of these things down and look at it. What's the initial words that come to your mind when someone goes, "Who are you?" It's like, "Oh, I'm a mother. Oh, I'm a pilot. I'm this, I'm that, whatever." All right. Cross those out and go deeper, right? Think about every moment that happened. Let's start with today, right? Who were you when you woke up? And then how did you evolve into the next part of your day? Whether it was getting your kids ready for school, whether it was going to work, whether it was the phone call that you got and you received bad news, and then going home at night to dinner with your rest of your family, and then relaxing, and then reading a story to your children or some, like go throughout your entire day and go, who was I in these moments? Who did I want to be in these moments? And I bet you'll find the differences within that space. So
right.
That's what I have as a challenge.
Yeah. And let us know. Send those in to us. Let us know what your highest values are or what your identity is behind the roles that you fulfill. All right. Well, thanks very much for stopping. Thanks for watching us. If this is the first time you've done that, it's a brave new world, audio and visual. I feel sorry for everybody's retinas out there. But 2023, it's a new year. It's a new playing field. Whatever's gone before is before. Reflect on it and draw lessons learned. And let's really get after this year. As a united people, we're standing in ranks, as Raph often says, on the left and the right. We're not necessarily close physically, but we're all facing in the same direction. We've got the same aim. So, yeah, thanks very much for stopping. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.